Good morning. Happy Labor Day. Today is September the 1st. I'm meteorologist Craig Moeller. Some of you may be at home and stumbling across Weather Desk going, what's this? I see it on the 13 News Now Plus app. This is a special half hour that we do every weekday morning where we take a look at some of the big weather stories from not only around Hampton Roads and Northeast North Carolina, but from across the entire region, the country, around the world. As you'll see today, we've got some big international stories, and sometimes we even talk about space-related stories. So if you have interest in anything with our environment, climate, national and international weather stories, and even space, this is a show for you. And again, every weekday morning we do it. All right, I'm meteorologist Craig Moeller, broadcasting from the 13 News Now studios in Southeast Virginia. Our headlines today, some of the topics we're going to be tackling. Texas got hit with more storms and more flooding rain. We'll take a look at that. Tropics, they're getting back to business as well. Of course, we had Aaron stay well offshore, churned up the ocean a little bit, sent some large waves back towards Hampton Roads, but that stayed offshore. Then we enjoyed a little lull for stayed well off to shore or well off to the east. So that wasn't a problem for the U.S. We do have a system, though, that may be coming together that will bear watching over the coming 10 days. We'll talk about that. All right, we also have a potential return of La Niña, and some researchers looking ahead at the El Nino Southern Oscillation. It goes between El Nino, then La Nada, which is a neutral phase, then La Niña. You know, it goes back and forth. We may be headed back towards a La Niña. We'll talk about that and what it might mean for the upcoming winter. And then, if you haven't heard, there was a magnitude 6.0 earthquake in Afghanistan. It has been devastating. There are a lot of fatalities there. We'll take a look at what's happening right now as folks in that part of the world are scrambling to recover from this tragic earthquake. We also have video from Mount Etna's eruption. I love the volcano stories. A lot of times we'll show you on what's happening in Kilauea in Hawaii, or we'll take you down to Central America or even South America. We show you activity in Malaysia, some different places along the Pacific Rim. We've shown different volcanic eruptions. Well, we've got some video from Mount Etna erupting. You want to check that out. And then we're going to take a look at the Labor Day outlook. If you've got travel plans later today, I've got you covered. We'll look not only locally and across the region, but what's happening nationally. And we'll have the week ahead. Also, my colleague, Hunter Forst, has a look back at August and what's typical of September for Hampton Roads and the region over the coming month. So all of that's ahead on the weather desk. We're going to start off, though, with Texas. There's a flood advisory still in place here, and there are actually flood watches out. This is over the weekend. You could see some heavy rain across parts of eastern Texas. You'll see it kind of developing, some more slow-moving, heavy downpours, some stronger storms. Look at this stuff coming in through the day on Sunday, just slow-moving, heavy storms rocking through eastern Texas. It has been a big issue. So Texas got the severe weather over the weekend. Take a look. Several beachgoers recorded a water spout there. You see it off in the distance near Galveston. These videos were taken Saturday afternoon. Water spouts are, of course, tornadoes that form over the water. They're typically weaker, EF0 kind of on the scale, or sometimes EF1. They come ashore and quickly dissipate a lot of times, but they can make for dangerous conditions out there on the water. And again, sometimes they can even suck up some marine life or aquatic life in shallow water. It's not unheard of for those to pick up some fish, some small fish that are near the surface sometimes, and can spit them out in other places. So that was a water spout from down in Galveston. About an hour away from that location, heavy downpours in Houston on Sunday, and I just showed you that radar loop. It washed out roads, leaving drivers stranded in Houston. The flooding even made it inside some homes. So really tough go there in Texas.
Happened real quick. And soon in 3-5 minutes, all the water started going in. So my daughter, she started screaming like, "Hey, Dad, look at the water!" And then she got scared. She started yelling. She started crying because we don't know what's gonna happen.
Well, as I mentioned, we have very slow-moving storms here again over East Texas. These are the flooding rains that created those problems that you just saw there in Houston. Right now, we're also looking at some other parts of Texas, seeing some very heavy rain. And I wanted to zoom into this particular part of Texas from San Antonio all the way over to Del Rio. And I'll show you a few more of the communities under this area. Kerrville, of course, Kerr County getting hit with the devastating floods on the 4th of July, back through Campwood, Uvalde, back over towards Rock Springs, this whole area with flood watches continuing through noon today. All right, let's change gears and switch to the Atlantic hurricane season and what's happening right now. You take a look, and there's honestly not much going on in the Gulf. You can see some of those big storms that came rolling across Texas through eastern Texas and the flooding rain we just showed you in Houston. A lot of that convection or storminess is now out over the northwest part of the Gulf. We always keep an eye to these convective areas when they're out over the warm water, but at this point, there's nothing showing eminent signs of development. I think this area here in the Southwest Caribbean also bears watching. Hurricane Center isn't doing much with that now. The Caribbean's generally quiet, as is most of the basin up across the North Atlantic, some other areas of convection. But of everything that's out here, it's this wave that just came off the African coast that we really do want to pay closer attention to. This is an area that over the coming week does have a chance of development. So you see as it moves along here, it's going to come into a more favorable area. And I wanted to show you one of the models. We'll just take a look at this case with the GFS, the Global Forecast System, the American Global Model. And again, with this wave coming off the African coast, we're going to be watching for some potential development later this week. Thursday, you start to see how the model starts to ramp it up a little bit here and continues to develop it as it brings it westward. Here's the Lesser Antilles, the Greater Antilles, the Bahamas here. There's Bermuda. See how it kind of moves along here. This is a week out. This is next Monday. So here it is, you know, a week from now, it's still going to be pretty much in the central or even on the eastern side of the central part of the Atlantic. Here's Cabo Verde, and again, here's the East Coast. This thing is far, far away. There's Bermuda. Again, as we go beyond that, still working westward. This is through next Tuesday and Wednesday, Thursday. Okay, we need to keep an eye to this. I will say kind of the longer range guidance kind of carries it off to the north. But at this point, it's way too early to know how that's going to play out for sure. So I just want to keep you alert to the fact that we are watching it. And think about it, again, next week, the 10th of September, that's when we'll hit the peak of the hurricane season. The next name on the list, Gabrielle. So we've had Andrea and Barry, Chantal, Dexter, and Fernand, all just tropical storms. We had one hurricane, and it was a doozy. Aaron, a Category 5 hurricane. Everything else just tropical storms. Gabrielle, the next name on the Atlantic list. How about the Eastern Pacific? Let's take a look over there. We'll switch gears and show you. This is Kiko. We're going to come back to Kiko here in a moment. There's some unsettled weather here near the Mexican coast that also has a good chance of development. Let's bring you up on what's happening with Kiko. The 5 a.m. update, the latest one in this morning. We'll get another one at 11 o'clock from the Hurricane Center. It is forecast to eventually become Hurricane Kiko. Here's Hawaii. As you can see, it is forecast to move west and maybe turn a little bit more to the north of due west. So this is something, and this is through next Saturday. There's a lot of time to watch this, but I guess this is one of those storms that while it's way out there and it may completely miss the islands or anything could happen, a lot could change, but it is something we definitely want to keep an eye to as it's working across the Pacific. We'll keep you updated on that. Then we have this other area, as I mentioned, a really good chance, an 80% chance that this becomes our next named storm. And I just mentioned we have Kiko out there. Right now, a tropical storm expected to become a hurricane. Lorena is the next name on the list. We'll see if that comes together. So that's what we're watching out there in the tropics. Now, let's come back to, well, before we get into La Nina, let's talk very quickly. I mentioned, you know, we're watching the tropics, activities picking up. The peak is September 10th. And as we continue over the coming weeks, I just want to remind you, Great show, always available every single night at 8 o'clock. It's a Hurricane Hub Live, where we take a deeper dive into the tropical activity. You know, one of the things that really influences our tropical activity, that is whether we're in an El Nino state or a La Niña state. It's a oscillation with the water temperatures in the Pacific. All right, what I'm talking about here, we can have abnormally warm water near the coast of Peru and in the eastern Pacific. In that case, we call it an El Nino. When there's a lot of cool water or a lot of upwelling closer to the coast of Peru and in the eastern Pacific, and that water, the sea surface temperatures are below average in the eastern Pacific, that's when we have a La Niña. And there are some signs that we may have a La Niña developing. So we're going to continue to watch all of that. Now, we can take a look at the La Niña outlook. And again, if our director's able to take it, we do want to talk a little bit more about the La Niña and what it means. So with the latest official National Weather Service forecast, the La Niña has now better than 50-50 chance of emerging the fall and sticking around for the winter. For the southern United States, La Niña typically means a warmer and drier than usual winter. It can also bring colder temperatures and more moisture for some parts of the Northwest and the North Central states. Forecasters say the upcoming La Niña looks to be on the weaker side of the weaker end of the spectrum, which could temper its effects, but it is certainly something that we will be watching very, very closely. You can bet on that. And it's interesting to note, when we have a La Niña in summer, we typically tend to see more activity in the Atlantic tropical basin. So that's a summertime effect. As we head towards winter, we'll see if that La Niña forms, and then if it lingers beyond that, that may come into play into next year, but it's too early to know. And typically they kind of phase back and forth a little bit. When we get El Niños, that can create all kinds of trouble for parts of the U.S. with the global weather patterns changing up, but that suppresses Atlantic activity. So that's what's happening. We'll see if that La Niña develops. All right, we're going to take you right now overseas and what's been going on as we take a look at earthquake reports. Nothing here in the United States, but as we pull back out and zoom in specifically to Afghanistan and eastern Afghanistan, there was earlier a 6.0 magnitude earthquake, a depth of 5 miles, and it was absolutely devastating. This strong earthquake in eastern Afghanistan has now killed more than 800 people and injured at least 2,500 more. Most of the casualties are in the Kunar province near the Pakistan border. The 6.0 magnitude earthquake struck late Sunday night, destroying entire villages. Search and rescue operations are now underway. Very, very difficult. Now, in case you missed this, Mount Etna in southern Italy, it's not an earthquake, but we'll take you back over here to Italy and Sicily. And Mount Etna, it is erupting once again. Check it out. The volcano partially closed to visitors last week after an automatic alert system noted increased activity. The video was taken at dusk on Thursday and shows streams of glowing orange lava oozing down the slopes of Mount Etna. Once the sun went down, that lava was seen shooting into the night sky. Etna is a very popular tourist attraction and is nearly 11,000 feet high. It's the largest active volcano in Europe. And it is so cool to see that. Of course, they have ways that they monitor it, and they, again, shut down the tourism around it, to keep people safe when it gets very active. But man, what a shot that is. And it is amazing to see that volcanic activity. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about a couple of things. We're going to take a look at the month that we just came through, our August. We'll look ahead to September, what we typically see. We'll have the Labor Day outlook, and we can also talk about what's happening around the country today and for the upcoming week. Stay tuned. That's after the break. Welcome back to the Weather Desk. I wanted to show you the month of August here in the Mid-Atlantic. It has been something else. We had only 3 days all month in August that were above average. The warmest day in August, 91 degrees. Now, you think about that, and if you're maybe watching down in Texas or someplace, you're like, are you kidding me? You know, our normal high at this point of the year is right around 87 degrees or so. That's where we were, 88 there, slightly above there on the 13th and 14th. But it's not uncommon for us to see temperatures up into the mid-90s, sometimes even a little bit warmer than that, especially in the early part of August. So we started off upper 70s to near 80. We did get that little warm stretch there that second week and into the 17th. But after that, there's another cool push, and we came through the entire end of August very comfortable. Temperatures not only lower, but lower humidity as well. It was wonderful to be outside across Hampton Roads. It's almost like we got an extra month of fall. Really incredible. You take a look at precip, and we had a little bit from time to time, but we never got any really heavy downpours across the airport. And now we are 5 inches below average for the year, just over 5 inches. We're sitting at just over 28 inches of rain since January 1. So we're getting to a point now where we're abnormally dry here in Hampton Roads. Now, with it officially being September, my colleague, meteorologist Hunter Force, has more on what kind of weather we typically see during the upcoming month.
Why September, the 9th month of the year, has a name that literally means 7. The word September comes from the Latin word septem, meaning 7. That's because in the ancient Roman calendar, September was actually the 7th month, starting from March, which was the 1st. Back then, the Roman year had only 10 months, and there were no January or February. When those months were added around 713 BC, it pushed September to be the 9th position, but the name stayed the same. So even today, September carries a little piece of ancient history in its name, a reminder of when the calendar looked very different. But weather-wise, average temperatures in September here in Hampton Roads are still rather warm. In the beginning of the month, our average high is in the mid-80s, and by the end of the month, we drop into the upper 70s, along with a 6:49 p.m. sunset by the end of the month. For 13 News Now, I'm meteorologist Hunter Forst.
All right, Hunter. So we are going to get into that cooler time now coming into the fall months. And again, we're very comfortable here in Hampton Roads. Let's talk about conditions across the country. A lot of folks will be traveling. And if you're going to be going back across parts of the Great Plains, you can see Nebraska and Kansas dealing with some wet weather. Western Missouri also seeing some unsettled weather. Arkansas, Oklahoma. And I mentioned that potential for some excessive rainfall down across Texas. It's interesting. You know, on the weather desk, I always take a look at the severe weather outlook. And honestly, today, there's not much of a risk. We have this old frontal boundary that is stalled out, just a stationary front here down across Florida, across the northern Gulf and through Texas. Got a little quick moving system here, some wet weather back across parts of Nebraska and Iowa, as I mentioned, some slightly unsettled weather, some showers offshore. There's a little trough of lower pressure there. Again, a frontal boundary far offshore, but high pressure's in control there. High pressure back across Montana, and it's really beautiful out on the West Coast. As far as that severe weather outlook goes, okay, one little spot, and this was a recent addition. Earlier this morning when I had the outlook, they didn't have any part of the country under it. This is a new little area, just a level 1 or marginal threat, southern Kansas into central Oklahoma. And the primary threat there would be some gusty winds. That's about it. Now, as we take a look at the flood potential, they could find some heavier downpours there. I mentioned the flood watches that are in place across Texas. Could also see some heavier rains down across parts of New Mexico and Arizona. A little bit along the Florida Atlantic coast and Tennessee into northern Alabama. There could be some heavier rains there. As I mentioned, West Coast looks good. The Northeast and the Eastern Seaboard also looking really good today. Let's talk about travel for your Labor Day. Some folks may be headed up to the Northeast today. If you're up around Boston or New York City, you're going to find very comfortable conditions. Beautiful around Cleveland today. Down around Orlando, there might be a few afternoon stray showers. Atlanta looks good. New Orleans looks pretty good as well. It's going to be warmer there at 90, but partly cloudy, not too bad. I mentioned the rain across the western parts of Missouri and southwest Iowa, but around St. Louis and Chicago, things looking pretty good today. Mid-80s for Little Rock. 92 there in Houston with a chance for a few storms. 87 in Dallas, 67 and a little soggy around Omaha. Minneapolis looking pretty good, upper 70s. Phoenix and Vegas, hot. Maybe a stray shower or storm, a high base storm around Phoenix, not out of the question. 83 in Denver, 93 in Salt Lake. Temperatures upper 70s to near 80 along the California coast. Seattle also looking good at 78. Across the region, we have good getaway weather. If you were in Hampton Roads or Northeast North Carolina today, maybe you've got to drive back up to the north. You live up around D.C. and you spent the weekend here at the Outer Banks. You're going to head back to 81 up in D.C. 79 in Charlottesville, 77 around Roanoke. Charlotte looking good. 80 degrees there, 82 in Columbia, and 80 down at New Bern. So all in all, a really good forecast across the region, even out through Lexington, Knoxville, Charleston. Beautiful back out over the mountains. Asheville looking great today. We do have some streaks of clouds that have been kind of streaming back towards the coast. Skies are going to be partly to mostly sunny. I think it's going to be a great day, actually. Temperatures very, very comfortable, as I mentioned. A little more cloud cover down over eastern North Carolina, but generally mostly to partly sunny skies. As we go through the overnight, it's going to be partly cloudy. Tomorrow, we'll see skies partly to mostly sunny once again. Temperatures staying in the 70s tomorrow and then closer to 80 on Wednesday. A little bit warmer, at least upper 70s to near 80 there as we go Wednesday afternoon. And then the winds come more around to the south as we get into late Wednesday night and early Thursday. As that high pressure slides offshore, you get the clockwise winds around the high. That starts to bring up the winds from the south, pushing our temperatures back up as we get into Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So here's a look at the ocean front. You see the winds coming in, and look at how it's playing on those waves. See a lot of wave activity, and you see how it looks really foamy here. This is an indication, again, a lot of rip currents going on. We've got a high threat of rip currents. You can really see some of that undertow. If you just watch the wave pattern here, those waters, the waves coming in and then getting drawn back out. So again, not a good day to be out in the water with that high threat of rip currents, but it is going to be a beautiful day at the beach to go out and maybe just sit in a beach chair and enjoy the waves and the sights. I was out with my wife over the weekend on the bay and we were watching dolphins. I actually saw a dolphin breach full out of the water come up and kind of do its thing. It was the coolest thing. Anytime you catch one of those where the fish come up out of the water, it's just incredible. Here's a look at what we have with our Thompson Creek Window Company sky view. Partly cloudy skies. You see some of the cumulus clouds out there. Northeast winds 16 miles per hour. The pressure is rising. We do have the high threat of rip currents from Virginia Beach on south up around Wallops Island through Ocean City, Maryland. Moderate threat of rip currents, but that high threat goes all the way down to Hatteras. For Ocracoke, we're back into that moderate risk. Out on the water, small craft advisories as well. So while we have that high threat of rip currents, surf height 4 to 5 feet, generally beach conditions looking good. You have to listen to the lifeguards and use extra caution around the water with that high risk. As you look out on the water, it's going to be pretty choppy out there, especially east of Virginia Beach. The seas 5 to 6 feet. In the bay, we've got those winds gusting to 25 knots, and that is why we have the small craft advisory up there. So highs today in the mid-70s, upper 70s inland. It's looking good across the region. Mid-70s for the eastern shore, for the peninsula, middle peninsula, across North Carolina. A little bit warmer, 78 Edenton and Hertford, mid-70s at the Outer Banks. Overnight tonight, the low temperature 65, partly cloudy, and then tomorrow back up to 77. You'll find temperatures gradually warming through the rest of the work week and into the weekend. Still pretty good with low chances for showers. Want to remind you, you can scan the QR code, get the 13 News Now mobile app, take our forecast, our radar with you on the go at your fingertips whenever you need it. It's a great resource. I want to thank you so much for joining us here from the Weather Desk. Again, each and every weekday morning, 9 a.m., we take about a half an hour to tackle today's top weather headlines with a deeper dive. I hope you enjoyed the show. Tell your friends about it. We'll see you next time right here from the Weather Desk.